welcome. This is our Yin Yoga lunch break for today. So Yin Yoga, again, nice slow practice. We're gonna do poses that last a few minutes, 2 to 4 minutes today. You can start, we're gonna start in a reclining butterfly pose, and you can just lie down on your back, feet together in this little butterfly shape, or if you have a pillow or a rolled up blanket, or a couple yoga blocks, you could create a little bit of a lift for your chest. So you can do both the butterfly shape with your legs and then also get a little chest opener, especially if you've been over the computer most of the morning. It's nice to get that little break. So, well, really, I think it's nice to get that break at all times, but especially then. So I'm gonna use a little blanket just to keep the sensation in my, that I get in the hip manageable. And then I'm gonna do this little extra blanket. So, if you're using yoga blocks, you want them to be quite high up your back so that the shoulder blades rest on the block, but the block doesn't really poke you in the spine. With pillows, you can be a little bit less exact. They can get a little bit, the pillow or blankets even can go down the back a little farther. You just find a spot that feels comfortable for you. They're not going to poke you in the same way as the edge of a block does. Okay. Then, I'm trying to unwind my hair. Then we're going to take the legs out. And for me, sometimes, because my leg will go all the way to the floor pretty close, but that's a little intense for my hip. It's just a little extreme. I'm getting older now, so I'm trying to do a little more of a kind of protection there. So I've got the blanket to help me feel. So I feel a stretch, but it's just there, just barely there. And then we'll pause here and just breathe. Kind of unwind the mind. So if you've been, like I have been focused on tasks for the last little bit, this is my chance to just let go of all of those little tasks and just be present in the moment with my breath and with my body. Just a really nice little vacation in the middle of the day. Halfway here, so it's a good chance to check in and just see if your mind started to wander. And maybe to see, like, have things shifted in my body and to such a degree that it would be helpful to readjust the props. Everything feels pretty hunky-dory for me, so I'm just going to stay. But I do like these little moments just to check back in. more big breaths. I usually bring the knees together. You can just straighten the legs out and leave them kind of low. I like this feeling of just bringing my knees back and even widening the feet out a little bit and kind of knocking them into the center just a little, too aggressively. And then when I get off of this back support, I will do a little bit more movement. So whatever you've got under your back, if you roll to the side and kind of scoop it out, that generally will get it out from underneath you. And then just notice what happened. I love having this particular way of opening because my back spreads out, my arm bone feels like it drops back into my shoulder, the chest lifts and brightens a little bit. It just feels really nice. Just having that little bit of a physical adjustment makes me feel a little brighter and a little bit more present and happy, which I like. It's not going to solve the world's problems, but it definitely feels nice. So if it's not true for you, it's possible that the object just either needs to be smaller or needs to be in a different place. So it's good to learn from our practice and then see kind of how we wind up. So we're going to do a pose called the cat pulls its tail. And to do that, I'm going to use a strap, but you may not need to. You're just going to hold onto your foot with one hand. And if you know that you can do that without causing trouble for your back, then you'll be fine. So I'm going to roll onto my left side to get this started. I'm going to start with just having a little head support, but I'm not going to need that the whole time. Then we're going to take the right leg, take the right leg over and put it in front, like that, okay? Then you're going to reach down here with your right hand and grab hold of your left foot. So the left foot comes around towards the buttock. Now, if you're like me and you've got really tight quads and relatively tight hip flexors and it causes trouble for your knee to hold onto your foot, then you can do what I'm doing, which is use a strap. So it just extends the length a little bit so your knee doesn't have to be quite so bent, but you can bring your thigh backwards. So we're sliding the left thigh back. The right leg can come into place to hold onto it. Some people may want to grab hold of that right big toe and stretch that right leg all the way out, and you're welcome to do that. You can stay laying on your side, or, and this is the part that I like, you can roll yourself down to the ground with your shoulders, and that gives you a little bit more of a twist. And then I just adjust this circumstance here so that my thigh is coming back, and I feel a little sensation on the top of my thigh and the front of my hip, but I don't have a lot of knee complaints. I don't want my knees to complain. So we'll just hang out here for a bit, and this will be a little bit less time than the last pose, but we're still going to stay for a few minutes. So the late summer is the season in traditional Chinese medicine of the stomach. So it's the time of year we pay attention to the nourishment that we take in and how we nourish and energize ourselves. So that's the theme of late summer and really kind of the implication of the stomach. The stomach meridian is also connected to the spleen meridian, so they're companions. The spleen is the storehouse of our red blood cells. So it probably has other jobs, but I know it has that job. So in any case, like both of these organs are kind of have a kind of theme or of holding or maintaining some of our vitality or being the place where we kind of nourish or replenish ourselves. And so this is the time of the season. The season is where we kind of get in touch with or harmony with that notion. So it's it's the time of year when there's the biggest bounty of fresh fruits and vegetables. Definitely we're at the height of the growing season. And so we can choose to nourish ourselves physically with more fresh fruits and vegetables, and we may also sort of consider if we're going to nourish ourselves through the winter, how do we lay in a store, like the spleen, lay in a store of produce. So if you're the kind of person that likes to can, this is your season. And you can get lots of, I get lots of joy and satisfaction from seeing rows and rows and rows of vegetables canned and ready for later in the year. So, but you could also consider this metaphorically. So how do we nourish ourselves mentally? It's a great time to take a little break from work, whether that's in the middle of the day or you take a vacation or whatever, so we can give ourselves a chance to kind of mentally refresh at this time of year. It's a good time also to consider, how do we nourish our heart? How do we make sure that we are giving ourselves a chance to take care of ourselves emotionally? And especially in a time like we're in right now, where that is challenging in general, can we use this late summer season as kind of a way to like think about these things and sort of take some actions that help lead us in a kind of feeling more nurtured and cared for, whether we do that for ourselves or for others. The spleen and the stomach meridian run up the top of the thigh and the front of the hip. And so we are kind of harmonizing with that when we pull on this connective tissue in this area. So hopefully, we have one more minute. Hopefully we will leave this pose feeling a little bit refreshed, at least on the top of our thigh. But I kind of like to consider the season that we're in as I'm practicing, and I shift my yoga practice a little bit as the seasons progress. Earlier in the summer, it was all about the lungs and the heart meridian, so I paid more attention to the shoulders and other things. And now we're kind of shifting into a little bit more of the hip flexors and the belly to harmonize with with that season in particular. All right, so we're gonna take 2 more breaths. Now to get out of this, I'm gonna take a big inhale, pick up this leg, and then as I exhale, I'm gonna let the other leg just slowly unfurl so that I don't put any pressure on my knee as I'm coming out. And then I'm just gonna let my legs kind of follow with my torso and roll back onto the ground. I'm gonna spin around 180 degrees to do the other side, but I'm not gonna do it just yet, because I like to stretch out my legs and just see, do I feel any difference? Like the top of my left thigh has a very pleasant kind of effervescent warmth to it, which feels very nice. And it also feels like that leg is slightly longer, the hip's a little closer to the ground. So there's information being sent from the fascia on this leg to my brain that says, yeah, that was nice, right? And so I'm inclined to go forward into the other side exactly the same way. But that being said, if you are getting signals that that was not so nice, then when you go into the next side, modify it a little bit. Maybe give yourself a little bit more space. Find a way to nourish yourself a little bit better, and see if it makes a difference. We'll try it again. So I'm going to spin around. And I'm laying on the side, right? So now I'm going to do my right leg, so I'm going to put the strap on the right foot. Little leaf. Okay. So then, bringing that right leg behind me, the left foot comes in front. I'm just going to reach down for the straps. And again, you don't have to use a strap, but you can, but if it helps, if it gives you a little bit more room, then use it. And then I'm going to roll myself, so I've got this little bit of a twist in my upper back. This is not necessary. You can stay on your side if that's the thing that's causing you trouble. And then we'll let this thigh kind of drift backwards as it allows us to, so that we get this kind of sensation on the top of the thigh. And then we'll just breathe, try to be present with our breath and kind to ourselves here. letting ourselves relax into this for a bit more. About halfway through here. Got about 30 more seconds, just breathing. Take a nice big inhale. And again, I'm going to pick up this leg and I'm going to let this guy unfurl completely. And then, I can just roll myself back onto my back for a moment and do a little bit of movement with that leg. Just little gentle movement in between yoga poses is really nice. And after you've done a little bit of gentle movement, you can clearly do something a little bigger if you like. Little windshield wipers always feel nice on my low back. So you can check into that with you as well. All right, so then it's nice to just kind of stretch out and see. Does it feel like I did a nice thing for myself? And hopefully it does. So this front area of the body, we're going to kind of stay with for one more pose sequence. So we're going to come onto our hands and knees and do a lunge. Now, that with that, I notion, if you want to do a little bit of cat-cow movement first, you can certainly do that. Sometimes it's nice just to do a few little rounds of movement for the spine. All right. So bring whichever leg you'd like to start with forward. I'm going to use my pillow as kind of a little armrest here so that I can, kind of relax into this shape. We're going to stay with this lunge for about 3 minutes, and we'll do the other side for about 3 minutes. And again, we're just getting into the same territory that we were in before with the hip now kind of more focused and a little bit less on the quad, right? So the hip flexors, not specifically the area that we're talking about, but in this general area is where these acupuncture meridians flow. They come up the top of the thigh, the top of the hip, kind of disappear into the body and reappear near the chest and around the mouth in the case of the stomach meridian. So just, we're not acupuncturists here, we're doing yoga. But it's interesting to kind of allow that to influence our practice or to give us a little bit of a inspiration for the area of the body that we want to work with at a given time. Without being too dogmatic about it. So I've been here for a minute, so it's a good chance for me to just see, like, am I doing anything that feels like I'm too far in? With this pose, because the sensation is largely at the front in the hip flexor connective tissue, I want to be mindful of being really slow and easy going with the stretch. It will open up, right? Things are going to shift, but connective tissue is not something to be brutal with. We really need to be very easygoing. Just allow gravity and time, the next 20 years, for example, to kind of unwind any craziness we've added onto our life. Not in a hurry. It's the continental drift, really, is what we're after. So we've got a minute left, and I'm going to go a little bit lower down. So I'm going to bring my bring a pillow in just to put the front of my hip on, so that I don't go too far. This lets me kind of drop this leg open a little bit and change the hip. Be mindful for yourself. Do things that are appropriate. It's my butt a little bit more, and I like that. Big breath. And then we're going to ease our way out of there. I just shift the hips back and then bring this leg back. Give it a little shimmy. And then maybe a few little rounds of cat. And then we can go into the second side. So I'm going to bring my left leg forward. And for me, the right side and the left side are not the same. There's a much greater sensitivity on my right side. So I don't go nearly as far forward. I go to just where I feel the sensation, and then I pause and let everything relax. So we're going to stay a while. So there's no reason to be a bully. Sometimes, like, it really doesn't take much, but even just that first minute or so, it's not even been a whole minute, is all it needed to start to kind of relax. Then I can go a little further, and if I wait a little longer, it'll relax again, and it might invite me in a little further. It might not. But really just allowing your body to kind of dictate when you go a little further with a pose rather than your mind is really helpful. So I'm going to take myself down into this little bit lower position, being really mindful. Let's see if I get invited in here. Okay. I'm going to stay for about another minute. Take a nice big breath, and we're going to ease our way back. Just take a moment. Now, we're going to do one final pose in the same sort of vein, and that's going to be a supported bridge pose. Now, you can use a block, any yoga block will work, underneath your hips, and different people have different amounts of lumbar spine. Flexibility, I like mine on the very lowest possible setting when I use a block, but some people like the medium. And then you can also go much, much more conservative, which is what I'm going to do today. So I'm going to use a folded blanket. So I'm folding it so that I've got pretty close to a yoga block sized, you know, it's big enough to fit under my pelvis and hold the bones, but it's a little bit less firm. It's a much softer surface. A throw pillow could also work for this. Throw pillows for me are a little bit squishy, so I like the blanket because it has a little bit more oomph. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to get myself onto this. So I'll slide my hips onto the blanket, and then just making sure that the pelvis is settled and the sacrum and both of the joints of the sacrum are actually on the firm surface of the blanket, okay? And then you can stay just like this, just with the feet on the floor, or you can extend the legs out. Now I'm gonna do one leg at a time. I can do both legs, but it feels quite a lot in my low back. So I do one leg at a time. I do one with the foot resting on the floor and one leg out. And then I'll give you a little halfway mark, and we'll do the other one. I'm gonna put the block where I can see it a little bit better. Okay. Now you can do both legs if it does not cause any trouble for your low back. You can certainly do both legs at the same time. It'll be just fine. Again, so we're kind of opening up this front body territory. If this pose just isn't going to work for you for whatever reason, it's just causing trouble, you can also do a sphinx. Flip over onto your belly, prop up on your elbows. For me, I like this, that the front body is on the top side of it because I feel like I have a little bit more opportunity to kind of play with the thigh, but the other pose will do just as well. You know, if you're shaking the dice of like, is this pose causing more trouble than it's worth, then definitely switch poses. Don't, because again, this is kind of a tight region for me. It's a place where I tend to hold a little bit of tension, both physically and emotionally. So I don't need a whole lot of lift, but everybody's body is a little different, and your mobility might be a little different, and so you can certainly adjust the height underneath your hip. So we're going to stay for about 30 more seconds on this side, then we'll switch. Big breath. All I'm gonna do is just lift my toes and like drag that foot as close as I can against the ground to get it back, and then I'm gonna extend the other side out. Kind of fiddle with where that leg rests and what angle it rests at. Try to find what feels interesting. I let this foot go as far out as I can and still feel stable. But you can have the foot really close to you if it feels better, it feels a little more stable that way. Just try to relax all the places in your body that you normally carry all your stress. So since this is a big area for me, I'm also relaxing my shoulders because I carry stress there, and all the muscles in my face, particularly the lips and the mouth, and then around my eyes. For you, it might be the jaw that really gets tight, so you might need to release the jaw and kind of get, like, just let even get a little slack jawed. Like, just let the mouth really relax. Let the lips get really soft and fluffy. When you first relax in this area, especially if you're used to carrying tension here, some weird phenomenon sometimes happen. Like, you might find yourself hypersalivating, or you might find the urge to smack your lips or to yawn. So those are just indications that you're actually relieving pressure from the nerves that are responsible for keeping your face like that. So we're going to stay for just another 30 seconds here. Taking a big breath, I'm bringing my toes up, kind of enlivening this leg, drawing it back toward me, and then I am just gonna, because we're pretty much done here for the day, I'm just gonna roll onto my side, okay? Using my arm for a pillow. And then now that I'm here, I could do like just a little bit of movement, just a little rock of the pelvis is all that's needed to create a little bit of space for me. Myself back up to a seated position so I can sign out with you guys. So thank you for joining me for a little yin yoga for the hip flexors and the stomach and spleen meridians. Let's take a nice big breath and a big sigh. Namaste, beautiful souls. Welcome to the rest of your day.